Back then, it was completely different. It was the Wild West. I wouldn't say it was like this profession that people did. It was just if you could crack the code and reverse engineer how Google works, then you could drive leads to .com companies that needed them. eBay at the time needed them, and I did really well with eBay. They were paying like something crazy, like $15 to $20 per lead just to drive a new user that would place a 99-cent bid. So there's a business model in there if you can reverse engineer Google, and so that's what I figured out how to do, and that's why I was able to quit my job as an accountant at the time.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by ExecHQ, a C-suite fractional firm providing elite executives for your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Randy Wasinger. Randy is the co-founder and CEO of CryptoSlam, the leading NFT aggregator, collecting and analyzing data for millions of NFTs across more than 15 blockchains. He has more than 20 years' experience as an entrepreneur, building high-growth businesses that specialize in SEO, SEM, affiliate marketing, display ad arbitrage, and big data. In addition to his leader experience as a CEO, he has also been the youth coach for 3 different sports, and he is the father of 6. Randy is also the 13-time national champion in Masters track and field, as well as the 2011 world champion. You can learn more about Randy at CryptoSlam.io. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Randy.
Randy, welcome to the Corporate Couch today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is the first episode where the Corporate Couch is collaborating with Startland News in Kansas City to highlight Web3 companies and founders and what they're doing in the space. So I know you're an early adapter and very excited to talk to you about it. So yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. I'm excited. It's been quite the ride so far, but in some ways it feels like we're just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, you're the founder, CEO of CryptoChain, and yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. But I'd love to start with a fun question. What one thing about you, even that people know you fairly well, would surprise people?
Well, everybody knows I've got a big family. So when I'm not CEO of CryptoSlam, I'm a husband and a dad of 6 kids. But one of the 6 we adopted from Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
From a Jamaican orphanage in 2017.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, like that's
cool.
Something I talk about all that often, because I'm usually talking about NFTs and crypto and all the excitement there. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw you. I was going to ask you about that possibly. I saw you had 6 kids and you're coaching three different sports. So good for you. And obviously you're I don't know if you're still active, but I saw you were executive director of a not-for-profit.
I was. I'm not as active anymore, just because of the CryptoSlam thing became too all-encompassing. But I was doing that for almost a decade, I think.
Okay.
And handed it over to some others. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That was Kansas City Smoke. It was an elite, or it is an elite development post-collegiate track and field club of all things. Very fun part of my backstory.
Yeah, I'm going to actually circle back to that because you have some records that I want to get to, and and talk about that. Now, I know you went to Russell High School in Russell, Kansas. So what growing up, what was fun for you? What did you love doing?
Well, I liked playing baseball. I was a runner in high school, but yeah, like Russell was just I don't think my kids would love growing up there because they know what it's like to grow up in southern Johnson County and all the amenities we have. And I don't think they would change a thing, and I don't think I would change a thing, I guess, for them. But for me, like Russell was like the perfect place to grow up at the right time. I have fond memories, great people back that way. A lot of them actually have tend to migrate to Kansas City, so that a lot of them I can still keep in touch with here. But yeah, just great memories all together from growing up there.
Yeah, and then Troy Carlson, who introduced us, he grew up in Russell too. Is that correct? If I have.
Well, not Russell. He was Western Kansas.
Okay.
It may have been Dodge City
Yeah,
or
I knew it
somewhere out that
was.
way.
From even though I've been here 40 years in Kansas City area, I grew up in an hour from New York City, so my Kansas geography is not that good. I did look up where Russell was though before, and I did see the population in the 2020 census was 4,400 people. So there you go. I'm sure it was a little
Yeah,
less.
its claim to fame is there's a if you're driving to Denver, it's about halfway. So a lot of people stop at the gas station and McDonald's there, but it's also home to Bob Dole.
All right.
So that was actually a big deal when I was growing up because he was always running for president. He obviously never won, but it was always fun when he would come back, and it just brought a lot of excitement to the town. And I think I would have been in college in 1996, like the last time, and that was a pretty big deal. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, a previous guest on the corporate couch was worked for Bob Dole out of college, and he was just a great statesman, great senator. Did a lot of great things. Did you have aspirations as a child growing up? Did you want to play in the professional baseball, or what was kind of it
Oh,
for you?
sure. Like, yeah, everybody did. There was a bit of a talent gap there for that to actually happen, but big Royals fan, as it might be obvious if you're watching this on video, I collect all kinds of Royals memorabilia. My brother played he played at Fort Hayes, which is a Division II school near Russell, and I've got a couple nephews now that are playing in college. So who knows? We may get somebody
There you go.
that makes the Royals. I've got a son that plays. He's a sophomore. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, I believe me, my goal or my aspiration as a child, I wanted to be an NFL quarterback. So, yeah. So, you look like you went to Notre Dame, and what was kind of your career? Not career, college strategy. Looked like you majored in business major, accounting, and computer science. What was kind of your why those two?
It wasn't necessarily something I always thought I would do. My family, I'm the fourth, so I have older siblings. They're all Jayhawks. They went to KU, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But yeah, I had a brother, or my brother. He applied to law school right about that same time, and kind of talked me into applying, and I got in. I wasn't expecting that, and so for me, like it was a bit of a culture shock. Like not a bit of a culture shock. It was a huge culture shock because I grew up like I had never like literally when I visited Notre Dame the first time, I had never been west of Denver like when I was a little kid, and never been east of Worlds of Fun. Maybe Kauffman Stadium, like whatever's farther
Whatever.
east.
Right.
Never been on an airplane. Like I had never been on like nothing when I went on my first visit. So it was yeah, it was an adjustment. It was again like a fun experience for sure, but it took a while for me to hit my groove just because yeah, it was of the culture shock. Everybody has an adjustment period that first year, but I think mine was maybe a little more difficult than some of the people I hung around with.
My brother, who's 10 and a half years older than I am, was a big Notre Dame fan. And growing up in New York, every Sunday, it wasn't like, 500 channels. You had options. It was basically, the three local affiliates, ABC, CBS, NBC. And we had two public or two independent channels in New York that we can watch. So, and public television. So, basically six channels, but every Sunday they had Notre Dame highlights from the day before. So we became Notre Dame fan. My brother's a Notre Dame fan. So of course I was a Notre Dame fan. And one of my bucket list items, I still have not been there. My brother has. I was to go to watch a football game at Notre Dame.
Yeah, you should. You
yeah,
should.
Yeah, I heard it's magical. So
it's worth it.
Yeah. Lou Holtz was the coach when you were there, I think, right?
He was. His last year would have been my last year.
Okay.
So I graduated in 1997. So the fall of 96 was the last season I was there. And that was his last year.
Yeah, he was a fantastic college coach. Not so much, he coached the New York Jets, which I'm a long-suffering fan. He didn't have a great pro career.
Yeah, it didn't last long.
So what was the kind of impetus behind your majors, accounting and computer science, Randy?
I think it was because I had a roommate that went into accounting. And believe me, I didn't go to Notre Dame to be an accountant. I don't even think I knew, to be honest, Jeff, what that even meant, like what it meant to be an accountant. And that's the truth. I was pretty good at math. I knew that, but I didn't know. So yeah, I saw he got into it and he's like, yeah, it'll be easy to get a job out of college. You should, that's why I'm doing it. So I was like, okay, sure. This class seems okay, I guess. Yeah, I just kind of ended up that way because it came fairly easily, I think. I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoyed it. I enjoyed when I got out of college. I enjoyed those first 5 years being a public accountant just because of all the friends. And I came to Kansas City afterwards. I worked for Coopers and Lybrand, and then they merged and became PricewaterhouseCoopers while I was there. So I just incredible 5 years doing that. But after 5 years, I was ready to move on. But yeah, I think at the time it was just, I heard I could get a job if I kind of went this route, and okay, sure. Yeah. That's why I'm in college. I want a job afterwards. But the computer science, that was, I think technically it was a double major in computer applications. That's where my heart was in coding and that kind of stuff. And that was really easy. Because, back then that would have been late 90s. Email was just coming out. The internet was just coming out. And so the classes I took really weren't hard at all. We were teaching this stuff all to ourselves because it was all so new. And so, yeah, it was pretty easy, but that's where my heart was.
So what was it, the Big Six then, or the Big Eight?
Yeah, the Big Six.
Big Six, okay. And then, they merged with Pricewaterhouse. So then it looks like you go off on your own. You start your own company. Based on what I read, you also started a company with your father's help when you were 15, and it looked like maybe he helped you with Wasinger Tech. So talk about those two things.
Well, yeah, when I was 15, this would have been back in Russell, at the peak of the baseball card boom. If you grew up in the 80s like I did, we started a baseball card shop in downtown Russell. So that was an integral part of my childhood, was that experience with my dad. Certainly had a passion for sports. Obviously, we talked about that, but collecting. All of my friends collected baseball cards, but I was that kid. I really collected baseball cards. I took it to an extreme. I too much. It was weird how much I enjoyed it. But it ended up, it morphed into a business. And it was a blast. I wouldn't say it was like a thriving economy of my friends and their parents, buying packs of baseball cards. It wasn't meant to go and run forever. Yeah. But while it lasted, it was great. Yeah. So that planted the bug, I guess, as an entrepreneur. Even before that, I guess I did paper routes and that kind of stuff. But but then after. So I was a public accountant for 5 years, and this would have been, I'd say like the dot-com bust had happened. So I certainly followed that closely, like the rise and then the bust. Yeah, was learning things like nights and weekends, and was just ready for something new. So yeah, just decided to venture off on my own. I didn't bring in like my dad or any family members right off the bat. It was more experimenting with affiliate marketing. Back then, so this would have been 2002-ish. Back then, Google was still pretty new. So my MO at the time was I figured out how to get websites to rank on Google, which in that industry is still around today. It's called SEO. I'm
Right.
sure you've all heard of that,
Yeah.
and it's quite important. Well, back then it was completely different. It was the Wild West, and so I wouldn't say it was like this profession that people did. It was just if you could crack the code and reverse engineer how Google works, then you could drive leads to .com companies that needed them. eBay at the time needed them, and I did really really well with eBay back when they were paying like something crazy like $15 to $20 per lead just to drive a new user that would place a 99-cent bid.
Wow.
So there's a business model in there if you can reverse engineer Google, and so that's what I figured out how to do, and that's why I was able to quit my job as an accountant at the time.
Oh, so you had a little bit, basically a little side gig, playing around with the, kind of
Not quite
Yeah.
yet, but I could
Yeah.
see the writing on the wall. It's like,
Yeah.
man, if I could just focus on this. I told my wife at the time, who's you know always been my biggest supporter and supported the crazy risks I started taking back then and continue to take. But we talked about it, and I'm like, I think if I just could do this full time, that this is going to end up pretty well. And so we made the leap, and it was rough, for honestly wasn't all that long, maybe a month or two, and then it turned on pretty quick.
Yeah. What was your big surprises like once you started to add a team, and add employees, and you know your senior auditor or whatever your title was, your accountant at PwC, and now you're basically the CEO running a company. What was like, oh shit, I didn't know this was going to happen.
I think I had to learn, and I'm 49 years old now, and I'm still doing this. Like I had to learn so much on the fly, and that comes with experience and the gray hair and all that. So I realize that's part of every CEO's journey. But I think I had holes that other people perhaps didn't have because I didn't go the MBA route. So like some things that were pretty like what I knew really, really well. But there were just some obvious holes that I think had I not had those at the time, I would have done things differently. Had to take some lumps along the way that maybe I wouldn't have if I had taken a different route.
Yeah, but the holes were natural in terms of, you just didn't have the experience in whatever you were dealing with.
I think so. I mean, you tell me, you talk to executives all the time. I don't. Like I know my journey in it, and it's like, man, if this just seems so obvious now. And it seems like some peers probably would have known that. So yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how much of it's just part of taking, again, your gray hair and part of the journey, and how much of it, is just preparation.
It seems like your dad was a mentor from a business perspective. Did you have any other mentors, whether they were books or real, people that you leaned on?
I do now, for sure. At the time, that's probably something that was missing. Like I could have used more mentorship than I had. My dad was great in many respects, but not from having, built a business from the ground up and learning how to scale it and do HR and hire and fire and, all of those complexities. No, like he was helpful for many other reasons, but not those. So yeah, like I could have used more mentorship during that period of time.
So you're running this kind of I'll call it a kind of digital marketing agency, and then at some point you get into saying, I'm going to develop CryptoSlam. Kind of talk about your kind of progression there, and the impetus behind CryptoSlam.
By the time I started CryptoSlam, I had already been through the ups and downs of the previous business, which would have been Wasinger Tech. And Wasinger Tech had a great run. It really did. I think there were, at its peak, there's probably 30, 40 people working, for us. But it had run its course, like the business model had run its course. So we exited out of that. And so from the period of like 2013 to 2018, like I was literally back to just being a one-man shop again, and actually loving it. I kind of thrive. I feel like if it's just me and a keyboard, getting to go try new things without all the other complexities of being a CEO. So I was doing that. I would say it probably after 4 or 5 years of it, I was starting to get a little bored. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, I'm going to go do a startup. It wasn't like that at all. It was, I stumbled into this thing called NFTs in the summer of 2018. What caught my attention, of all things, we talked about my story with the baseball card shop. It was this project on the Ethereum blockchain called MLB Champions, which was branded as, in a way, or this is how I saw it anyway, it was baseball cards on the blockchain. And I knew enough about blockchain, like I had been following it. So I wasn't like a total newbie, but I wouldn't say I was in the industry at all. I was just following it. But I saw that and I got it like instantly. I was hooked within, say, a minute. So what I did was that project launched, and this is back when like I didn't realize how early it was at the time. I actually felt late. I totally felt like a late comer into crypto because I didn't have a stash of Bitcoin or a stash of Ethereum. I was learning I didn't even know how to get Ethereum. And it was a lot harder back then, setting up a Coinbase account and making sure it played nice with your bank account. And what's this MetaMask thing and all of that. It's still, not as user friendly as it should be now, but it was a lot harder back then. So I was jumping through all those hoops. But yeah, like I was doing it for the sole purpose of I wanted to buy these NFTs because I saw them, and honestly still do. I saw them as the 1952 tops of digital baseball cards. And I wanted as much as I could get my hands on. So what happened was what my flow was, I took money from the bank account into Coinbase to buy Ethereum at about $100 per ETH. That would have been the price at that time, 80, $90, 200, like probably if averaging it out, it was in the hundreds, what I was paying per ETH. So I would take that and I would immediately go and buy MLB Champions on the blockchain. And what we're not going to do is back calculate if I had just left it all in Ethereum, how much that would be worth today. You can't do that. But the point is, what did happen was I'm still convinced to this day, what's most likely the first, if not the first, one of the first NFT whales, because of like this collection of Shohei Ohtani rookies, Aaron Judge, Salvador Perez. I just got like this incredible collection. 1952 tops baseball cards weren't worth, a tremendous amount, until like 30, 40 years later, until people finally caught on that, how early these things were. I'm still convinced that's going to happen on those someday. So I kind of got off topic there. The point is, I became a whale, and Jeff, at the time, there were no tools for any of this. Like I didn't know, like I was buying Shohei Ohtani's and Mike Trout's and Salvador Perez, but I didn't know how many there were. I didn't know the rarities. I didn't know the traits. What we take for granted now didn't exist back then. So I didn't say, well, I'm going to go do a startup. And I just started coding just for no other reason than myself. I wanted this. And I thought, well, if who knows, if this has legs someday, it better have some cool name rather than, like MLBchampionsdata.com. I didn't do that. I was like, if this were to go somewhere someday, I wanted it to have a cool name. So CryptoSlam, most people don't know this, but the slam comes from the Grand Slam in baseball, not the slam dunk, because we had a rise to fame off the backs of NBA Top Shot in 2021. So I think everybody then that came to know CryptoSlam during that period when hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of people were coming into NFTs for a brief period of time because of NBA Top Shot. There was only one place to go by that point for the NFT data for NBA Top Shot because of how early we were, and it was CryptoSlam. So they thought it was all a slam dunk angle. They didn't even know what MLB Champions was. But yeah, that's how it got its name.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ExecHQ, a C-suite fractional firm providing elite executives for your business. If you're having challenges taking your business to the next level, if you want to augment your leadership team, or prepare your company for increased growth, profitability, and an eventual successful exit, we have seasoned executives from every C-suite position ensuring a perfect fit for your needs and the dynamics of your industry. You will work with senior leaders who like to roll up their sleeves while checking their egos at the door. They can help your business in specific services such as strategic planning, executive leadership coaching, financial management, corporate governance, marketing, sales management, and many other advisory solutions vital to your business success. That's exechq.com. To learn more, go to exechq.com or email Jeff Palacio at jeff.palacio@exechq.com.
So what was so, like I've heard of the Honus Wagner, card, and I was a New York Yankee fan. So, if I got a Mickey Mantle, I knew that was tremendous. But what, like the 52 tops, like you referenced that a couple of times, what was the significance behind that year of cards?
52 tops would have been the year that I would say baseball cards went well, they didn't go mainstream yet, but that was the first set that was produced by Topps. That was the highest quality, but it had like enough rarity in it. It had like the Mickey Mantle rookie, which of course held Willie Mays rookie. So it was just a great year for rookies. But it's known as, kind of like that gold standard for when it all began. Now there were like you mentioned the Honus Wagner. There were sets in the
and that was in
area as
some
well.
kind of cookie or cupcake. I don't know. It was some weird thing where they were giving out cards.
Yeah, it was like tobacco.
Yeah.
So that was
Okay.
pre-war, but post-war, 52 tops would have been big. 52 tops would have been what my dad would have collected as a kid, or maybe not him, but maybe some of his friends did. I think he started collecting in closer to the mid 50s, but that's certainly I would say that's the most popular set for collectors.
No, I remember going to the store and buying a pack for whatever it was, seeing who got. I love the gum they had in it. So like got football cards. I had a bunch of football cards. And
Jeff, I still collect that stuff. Like I go on eBay and your favorite Mickey Mantle. Like I've still scout those out from time to time. I never grew out of it.
Yeah, no, I love that. No, I grew up a big sports fan. I love the history of the NFL and baseball and even in the NBA. I could quote stats and all that, but not that well anymore. But so it's just incredible, this CryptoSlam, and then talk about. I mean, your investors in it have just like the who's who. I mean, Mark Cuban reached out to you on Twitter, now X, and he became, I think, your first investor. Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn founder, Ashton Kutcher. The co-founders of Rotten Tomatoes look like the FanDuel founders and investors. So talk about that, because I mean, again, we're both based in Kansas City here. You just don't hear about that stuff. So when I heard your story originally back in May at the Casey Dow kickoff that Troy Carlson had, I was just amazed of your story and CryptoSlam and just having that type of kind of prestigious investor. So talk a little bit about that.
Say I got lucky. It was because of how early I was. combined with, a great support system around here to be, willing and able to take those risks, plus what I learned, all the years leading up to it. But it was largely luck, because I've certainly realized that others, it just doesn't come that easily to generate a cap table and a support group that I had. And it all started with Cuban. Like I had, okay, so this would have been right around the Super Bowl of 2021. NFTs were blowing up. I mentioned that NBA Top Shot was having its day, its run, and the competitors to CryptoSlam hadn't shown up yet. Our traffic was through the roof. Couldn't keep the servers up. Like it was a very dynamic time. So what happened was in the course of like a couple weeks, I had to make a choice between, do I want to take on angel funding? Because to that point, I had bootstrapped everything myself, but I knew like I needed more resources to keep up with it. I could either take on angel funding and go that route, or I could sell what I had to OpenSea. So I had like an acquisition offer in February of 2021 with OpenSea. And I can still remember, like, I had like maybe a week to figure out, like, this is literally where I was at. Do you go with Mark Cuban, or do you go with like this rising potential unicorn, which they ended up becoming? And I was in the parking lot of the Hy-Vee Arena on a Sunday morning on my phone, because my daughter had a cheer competition, and I was basically Shark Tanking on my phone with Mark Cuban, working a deal, and decided to go that route. And I did it because I don't know why I did it, to be honest. I think at the time I thought like it just seemed like I didn't know what my plans were necessarily. I'm kind of in this for the ride. I want to create something I want to, like we all do at this point, especially when you get older, you want to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and even better if you can be the one to create it. So I'm like, I'm going to do this. And so that's the long answer to the question of what that was like. Getting Cuban on board was the domino that allowed Ashton Kutcher and Reid Hoffman and everybody else to come in. So he has a decent chunk of CryptoSlam, and I've never regretted that once. It was like probably the best decision I ever made was when I took him on as an angel. He's been incredible.
Do you actually talk to Mark Cuban periodically, or it's one of his advisors? Like, how does that work? I went to his website and all the companies he invested in, and it's just crazy, good companies, and obviously CryptoSlam's on there. It's just amazing. So, kudos to you, and timing is everything, but that's great.
Well, the answer would be neither. So if I really needed to get Mark on a call and I was going to make it worth his time, I'm sure I could. But he, at least with my experience with him, he likes to do it over email. So my interactions with him have all been like him on his phone, me on my phone. And, it is really cool. 9 times out of 10, if I send him something, it comes back pretty quick. And honestly, I don't think that's anything particular to me and CryptoSlam. I'd like to think it is, but I think it's just more of who he is.
Yeah.
And you hear him talk about how he supports his founders and portfolio companies. I really think that's the way he is with everybody.
Yeah. So I would say for me, I'll say I'm an average. I have average knowledge of Web3, blockchain, crypto, and I say that, although I think I'm really just a neophyte in the space. And it just, as we've talked about, I know Lisa Syme, who's helping Troy, and on the advisory board of KC Dow. But like, if you're at a party and people ask you what you do and what do you tell them? Because I would say, like, most people don't know what the hell's going on in Web3 and blockchain and crypto. That's just my guess, but that's what are your thoughts on that?
I'm really not very good at that, to be honest, to give like concise, like elevator pitch.
Well, it's
summary.
Complicated. I think that's
it is, and it changes because like what, and even to this day, which is a whole other present day CryptoSlam is a lot different than CryptoSlam in 2021 and even last year. And I would even say even 2 or 3 months ago, it's ever evolving. What I do is I am founder and CEO of a one like the original like the first NFT data company. So if you know what NFTs are, like that helps. And some people have, like when I'm at a party, like they may have heard that Patrick Mahomes was in on an NFT project or somebody else like in pop culture. So that helped. I think now Bitcoin and crypto in general is starting to become more mainstream. So that helps. I'll get asked a lot. So yeah, do you mine Bitcoin or do you mine Ethereum? You can't mine Ethereum anymore, but no, that's not what we do. But we're more like it's not a perfect comparison by any means, but it's not a bad one either. Like we're like a Google for Web3. So if Google is to Web1, because they index and organize everything in Web1, so like websites, the internet, that's what CryptoSlam does. We index and organize data that's on the blockchain.
And what do you think, just the average person or out there, what's their biggest misperception of crypto and blockchain and Web3?
Maybe that it's not for them, that it's just for the nerds like Randy. And that's how it used to be, for sure. But the future is, whether everybody realizes it or not, is that it is for, or it will be for everybody. And now you may not realize it though. At some point, and this is already starting to happen, but at some point in the future, everybody will be using Web3 technology, but they won't see it as Web3. They may not know it as Web3, but they will be using it.
And again, based on what I know, it kind of just replaces a lot of the traditional ways we live in terms of money too, right? So like I'll bring up Lisa again. She introduced me to someone that wrote a book called The End of Scarcity, but it's written in a novel-like format. And it's about the history of money, and really no one really in the U.S. understands money, because only 3% of our money in cash is in actual currency, and the rest it's driven by mortgage debt, student loan debt, credit card debt. It really drives our economy. So it's really just interesting because you don't need title companies with blockchain. That's what Pamela Norton's company does. Her company, she founded Title Chain. So it's almost like, and I was around in the the boom days of the internet and the boom and bust, in 98 through 2001, 2002. But it almost seems like it's comparable to that, the Web3 space, but it's like on steroids. Like it's 10x, 100x the speed, and I would say the complexity. I would love your thoughts on that.
I think that's fair. The boom and bust cycles in crypto tend to come every 4 years, which coincides with an event called the Bitcoin halving, HALVING. I'm not an expert in this, in Bitcoin, by the way, so I know enough, but my expertise are in other phases of it. But the boom and bust has already happened several times, and we're part of like the next boom as of right now. We've already busted a few times. CryptoSlam had to live through the last one, but make no mistake, like the tides have turned again. And to your point about it being on steroids, yes, and each cycle too is bigger and stronger than the last one. So 2025, it's going to be unique. Certain things are going to mirror, I think, what we saw in the past. Other things are not, but just make no mistake, though, it will be, and already is, heading into this cycle, like just bigger, like orders of magnitude bigger than what we've seen with previous cycles.
I know Kansas City is one of the host cities for the 2026 World Cup. Is CryptoSlam have any like specific plans, initiatives towards that, or you're just you're a data aggregator, so you just things happen, they happen.
It wouldn't, the short answer is no. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't end up doing something related to it, but our acute opportunities right now are certainly with things happening today, and our positioning is quite strong. So we're, mobilizing to, figure out how to best take advantage of the current tailwinds.
So is it difficulty for you as the CEO in this space, Randy? Is it, I mean, if you're running, I'll just say a manufacturing company, it's pretty cut and dried. I mean, you obviously can do innovative things, but when you're building your, we're recording here in December 2024, when you're building your 2025 plan, you're going to have, basically a pretty concrete plan. Now, obviously, it's going to be revised, but it's not major revisions. Is it a lot different because you're in the Web3 space?
It's completely different because I'm in the Web3 space. And I wish there was I wish there was like this 2025 plan that we, could lay it all out and chop off every milestone along the way and have confidence that we are going to end up where we need to go. But that's not the nature of Web3. Certainly not right now as rapidly as it is evolving. So instead, it's more of I'd like to think is more of a principled approach. So rather than, hey, let's make a plan and stick to it, it's more, what are our principles as a company? What's important to us? Where do we feel like our unique strengths are? That would be one of the principles is focus on what we're best at. Well, we're best at data. Well, what kind of data? Not necessarily raw data. Everybody can do that at this point. We're really good at the aggregated data. So you've got like principles, and that combined with being open to the opportunities in the market and the innovations. You can't have your head in the sand while the market's rapidly innovating and then missing out on the opportunities. So I would say as of now, we're operating off of principles. We're iterating quickly, trying to find that magical product market fit that, takes us to where takes us where we want to go with this.
Yeah. If you could wave a magic wand for 2025, Randy, and something could happen, to help you outside of, 100% certainty, which is obviously probably is never going to happen in this industry. What would that one thing for you be?
We have, I think I mentioned a couple times now about the opportunity that's in front of us. And I shouldn't say that in the singular, it's plural. There are many opportunities right now. To expect that we can go and capitalize on every potential opportunity just because we have like this great Google type infrastructure for Web3 data. Realistically, we can't do that. Like if there's 10 forks in the road and maybe like 6 of them are success and 4 of them are failure, but 1 out of the 6 is the promised land. That would be my magic wand, is that when we're at that fork in the road and, I, as the CEO, head us down that right fork. I feel fortunate that there are, what I would describe as forks in the road that are worth taking. We went through a bear market like a year ago at this time. It was completely different. Like, what are those forks and where are they? When are they going to come? Is this really here? It's just a lot different now with, the way the industry has shifted, the developments we've had internally as a company. We're in a much better spot. But yeah, like that magic wand would be, I want to have chosen correctly, because if I do, everything will have fallen into place.
Randy, I always like to see how people, busy executives, kind of, obviously we talked about it earlier, either, I can't remember if we were recording or before we were recording, but, in terms of, you're a father of 6, right? And you're coaching 3 sports for your kids. You obviously, I don't know if you still run, but I know you were a world champion in the 1500 back in the day in the Masters division, 35, I believe. So how do you, what is your process to kind of keep everything together, both from your role at CryptoSlam, your role as a husband, your role as a dad, and obviously your own fitness.
Well, when I was winning the world championships, I was not. Well, I won one world championship. When I won that one, I was not doing CryptoSlam because they would not have happened. There's certainly got to be balance with the family. Even like you, I'm not coach. I'm not coaching 3 sports now. I'm actually just coaching one. Just as the kids have gotten a little older. So it's certainly like family first. It has to be. And for me, the coaching's always been a big part of that. I've coached every kid I have, and wouldn't trade that experience for the world. We'll continue to do so as long as I can. My dad did that for me. That's where it came from. He was my baseball coach, and I knew I had to do the same for my kids. So that said, you can only go all in on one thing at a time. And if you're going in all in on more than one thing, you're not all in. So when like that complete ridiculous training that it took when with the 100-mile weeks and marathons and half marathons and track meets and flying around the country, that was all in. And any athlete that that aspires to be elite, you obviously have to do that. So now, to answer your question, I'm not running anymore, just enough to stay healthy. I kind of wish I miss it. I wish I could. I don't think I'm retired quite yet, but I'm certainly not competitive now. I couldn't be. So now I'm all in on the CryptoSlam thing. Like, could not be more all in. So that's how I do it. I'm not balanced. I can't be. Family certainly comes first, but all in on one thing at a time.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I totally agree. I mean, it seems like you're a person when you're at CryptoSlam, you're 100% at CryptoSlam. When you're with your family, you're 100% with your family, and and I know that's hard to do. And we all, it's all a journey, not a destination, for sure.
Yeah, there's no room for anything else. It's work and family.
Yeah, that's great. Ray, I love to help 2 groups of people with great leaders like yourself. Your advice on that first group is that person that is graduating from college. So whether it's December or May of whatever year, and they're coming out, and now they're going to get their first post-college job and start their professional career. What advice would you have for that age group?
It would be, you have got to know AI. Whether it doesn't matter what profession you're going into, it doesn't mean you need to go into AI, but you need to know how to leverage AI in whatever you're going into. So I think to learn that, to stay up to date with the tools that are rapidly evolving, I think that's the single biggest thing you can do, or you're going to be at a disadvantage to those that are doing that.
Yeah, I love that, and I've interviewed over 100 people, and I'm pretty sure you're the first one to go all in on AI. I think maybe one other person may have mentioned it, so I love that. What in terms of any AI? What is it? Claude AI? Is it Chat GPT, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters because the development is so profound at this point. It's like, is it iOS or Android? It doesn't really matter. It's right. All pretty awesome. Yeah. So whether it's OpenAI or Meta's, they've got like the Llama platform, Grok on Twitter X. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of others, but yeah, I don't think it matters. It's just, again, back to a principle thing. You should know what those emerging tools are that are at your disposal to make you more efficient, make you more effective. Yeah, otherwise you'll be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, 100%. I've interviewed Seth Godin on my podcast, and what he would say is that you're going to have to do things in the workplace where that AI can't do, else you're going to be replaced. So I love that advice. That second group I love to help is, if you want to take that career path where you're actually going to have people underneath you in an org chart and be responsible for a team of people. So you go from an individual contributor to a manager or whatever the title is. What advice would you have for them, Randy, as they begin their leadership journey?
You're not necessarily born a leader, and you're not necessarily born a CEO. It is something that you have to commit to and commit to the craft. So educate yourself, read books, find that mentor. I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I was missing that when I was in my 30s. So find one or more mentors, find those people that have been where you want to be and surround yourself with them, whether it's reading their book or, maybe if you're fortunate like I am to have them like on your cap table, surround yourself with those people, and don't just don't assume you learned everything you needed to learn, coming into it. It's a process, and honestly, it's never ending. Some days I feel like I'm dumber now than I was in my 30s. I was like, that guy wouldn't have struggled with this, he's, fearless. So why am I struggling with it now? It's
because you know what you don't know. That's why.
Yeah.
I love that. Any you mentioned some books, but any specific ones you would recommend to new leaders?
I like I can't remember the authors. Isaacson maybe with Steve Jobs. That's excellent. I'm actually reading the Elon Musk book now. I don't have a lot of time, so it's in 5-minute increments here and there, but
right.
I'm reading that, and I really, because I'm a sports guy, I like the leadership books of coaches. So like Nick Saban, Lou Holtz, who we talked about earlier. I've read his books. Bill Belichick. A lot of those lessons from leading the troops, in the battle on the gridiron, do certainly correlate into companies as well.
Yeah, Pete Carroll has a great book, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically how he stopped trying to emulate others' leadership styles and embraced his own. And I want to say it's a Winning with Integrity, but it's probably been about 15, 20 years ago I read it, but that is a good one.
And that one's worth reading?
Yeah, I think so. 100%.
I'll put that on the list.
Yeah.
I'm kind of running out of coaches to pick their brain. I'll try that one then.
Yeah. Well, Randy, thank you so much for coming on the Corporate Couch. I love your story. I'm glad that I'm honored that you came on today to tell yours. So thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's been fun.
What an amazing story Randy has. I was just so intrigued with his career and where he's at now. I mean, grows up in Russell, Kansas.
Home of Bob Dole.
Yep, that's right. With Bob, Bob Dole's whole hometown. The population 4,400 based on the 2020 census. So yeah, he's just 5 years at PwC as an accountant, auditor, whatever he was, and then he starts his own company. So he's probably like 27-ish, and then it reminds me of the book Outliers. How he developed CryptoSlam. So, Outliers, had the 10,000 hour rule. So, hard work is important, but it was also when you were born, right? So if, elite Canadian hockey players, they're mainly born at the end of the year. They could be up to a year older than their peers growing up in sports. So they develop faster, they mature faster, they get stronger faster. So they move on to elite levels because they show more talent earlier on because of their development. And similarly, like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, they're all about the same age. So they grew up in the beginning of the evolution of computers in industry. So if they weren't born in that time period, and I feel a little bit of that with Randy. And he started with baseball cards growing up. He was fascinated with them, obsessed, I would say. Started a baseball card shop when he was 15 years old with his dad in downtown Russell, Kansas. But he just was born at the right time. He was technical, so he was a coder, at the end of the day, programmer. And then his company, CryptoSlam, he has like the blue blood of the investment community. Mark Cuban messaged him on when it was called Twitter and became an investor in CryptoSlam. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. Ashton Kutcher, the great Hollywood investor, I'll say, he's made a lot of money in a lot of different, ventures. The co-founders of Rotten Tomatoes invest in CryptoSlam. The founder of FanDuel. So, I mean, it's just amazing that this, former Russell Kansan, born and raised there and now in a suburb of Kansas City, Overland Park, has this company that really not many people in Kansas City have even heard of. And he's in this Web3 revolution.
Yeah. And, every one of those investors, had done their homework. If you and I started a company and we needed some angel investor, we may or may not be able to convince one of them to give us some money or something like that. But if you have a consensus of all of these guys that have all done their homework and have looked into it, and they all said, yes, I want to invest. I want to give that person some money so he can develop this product and take it to market. That says a lot.
Yeah, it's not the same people that are invested in over-the-counter, at-home hemorrhoid removers or something like that, right? I mean, these people are doing due diligence and invest in companies that obviously they believe in and have done a lot of research.
Mark Cuban has a lot of money because he knows how to have a lot of money. And he knows that when he has a lot of money, he knows what to do with it. He's not stupid.
Joe, what was your take on Randy?
It's one of the most unique businesses that we have had on the corporate couch, and it's very difficult. Matter of fact, he even alluded to this a little bit. It's very difficult to even explain what it is.
Yes.
Not just what an NFT, a non-fungible token, is, and what blockchain is, and all that stuff. But then, if you make an assumption that you know what those things are, then what does his company do with it? And the best example is. He made kind of a passing reference to this, but he said it's kind of like Google, if you will. And what that analogy means is that Google, at least in the purest form of Google, when all it did was go out and read the
early days.
Yeah, the early days of Google, it just went out and read the entire internet, and it could read the entire internet in like 3 days.
Yeah, because they indexed it.
Yeah, and then they would index that. And then what that would mean, the implication of that is that Google did not create any of their own data. They did not own any of their own data. They were dependent on other people to create the data, and they just went out, found it, aggregated it, indexed it, and then turned around and presented it on a silver platter to the people that were asking questions about it. I think that's what Randy's company does, is he doesn't create any of his own data. All the data that he has on the website you could get from somewhere else anyway, but he goes out and gathers all of the sales data, all of the demand and supply data for all of these NFTs, and he gathers them together and then puts them into one unified dashboard that says, "Here's the data. I hope you like it," and that's actually what this company is all about. It's interesting. If I was going to create a company, that would be a neat business to be in. The fact that you don't have to, you're not responsible for creating any of your own data. All you're responsible for is either going out and finding it or having people deliver it to you. However, the back end of this works, I'm not sure. But you end up with a bunch of data, and then you reformat it and turn around and present it to everybody in a way that makes sense. And that is an interesting business plan to be in, and that's probably how he could attract the Mark Cubans and Reid Hoffman and all those people, because he had a very unique business plan, and then he did it well. He did it better than obviously anybody else that was doing anything similar to that. So it was an amazing interview. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I asked him about planning. I go, so based on how fast the industry moves and all the dynamic changes and the highs and the lows, and it's just accelerated, can you do regular planning? Basically like we're here in December of 2024, like a 2025 plan. He goes, well, no, not really. I mean, like he has, but it's all It's so dynamic.
Because he's so dependent on what the market is going to be doing.
Right.
And all he can do is kind of ride the waves, and he's fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be amazing to see where CryptoSlam and Randy goes. So I'm looking forward to following that. So, Joe, what leadership wisdom would you like to give our listening audience today?
Today we're going to go to that great philosopher named Stephen Postis. Do you know who Stephen Postis is?
I do not.
He is the writer of the daily comic strip, Pearls Before Swine, if you've ever seen that. And one time, Stephen Postis said this. He said, "Those who climb up a mountain seeking one piece of advice to turn their life around are probably never going to turn their life around, but at least they get some good cardio."
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.